Good morning, everybody. Jason here from AV Pro Edge, and I am very happy to have two special guests with us today. We're going to be talking everything that comes with the Value Electronics TV Shootout. And with us today is Robert Zohn from Value Electronics and their in-house calibrator, John Reformato. Hey guys, how are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome, nice to see you guys. Nice to hear from you. How's everything going up in your neck of the woods?
All very good here. We're staying safe.
Good, good. So thank you guys so much for being here today. And I wanted to meet with you guys to kind of talk a little bit about the shootout, the origins of it, how you guys are going to be handling the shootout this year with everything that's going on with lockdown and whatnot, and really just give the audience that's listening today just kind of a sneak peek at what the shootout's all about. You know, there might be some folks on here today that have never attended one or don't know what it's all about. So I just wanted to spend some time with you guys and say hi and see how things were going and talk about the shootout this year. For those of you who are listening live, we do have a question box open. So as we're chit-chatting with Robert and John today, feel free to submit those questions in. We'll leave some time at the end too for some questions if you guys have any at the end. And we've got some really cool pictures and a couple videos to talk about, again, with the history of the shootout. And we'll be happy to share those links with everybody at the end. So guys, the shootout this year is going to be a little bit different. So I wanted to spend some time with you just kind of telling the folks how the shootout's going to happen this year. Now, traditionally, everybody's in a room, you guys have TVs, and it's all kind of an in-person type of thing. So how are you guys going to handle it this year?
Well, I want to thank John, actually, who's on with us today, for his recommendation, which started our discussions on how to handle it in regard to concerns to COVID-19. And I just have to start by saying we still don't have any final plans or decision, and we're waiting to see how things progress with COVID-19.
Sure, sure.
The idea, which we've adopted and appreciate very much, is that if we can do this event, we would do it as a closed door. We would not invite guests like we've done in the past. It would be just the Hollywood colorists and the judges that are real scientists, along with one or two presenters. And we would do it so we can do social distancing. Everybody would be tested and questioned before they came in and be wearing protective masks and gowns and gloves and keeping our distances. So that's the way we're considering doing it this year, but everything is subject to how things are going to progress along with this virus, and it'll be possibly scheduled for fall of this year.
Okay. Good. It sounds like an excellent compromise, and I give my hats off to you guys for figuring out a way to do it safely. And I know people get really excited about this event, so I'm really happy to hear that you guys have some plans for it. So excellent job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. John and I have put the safety and welfare of all people above all else.
Excellent. I love that. That's very nice of you guys. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the shootout. Robert, first of all, how long have you been there with Value Electronics? How long have you had the shop?
I opened the company in November of 1998.
Awesome.
Came out of television broadcasting as a systems design engineer. And with the development from analog TV to the transition of digital high definition TV, I wanted to bring that experience of premium audio and video to enthusiasts, to the home enthusiasts. So that was the mission for starting Value Electronics in November of 1998. And the television shootout event was created in 2004, actually. And that was the very beginning of the TV shootout. In 2007, I believe, we brought it public.
So what sprung the idea? Were you standing there in a showroom full of different TVs and just thinking to yourself, like, how do we judge these? Where'd the spark come from? Where'd the idea come from?
Well, I'm a serious, passionate enthusiast for
Absolutely.
film, audio, and video my entire life.
Sure.
And it's, of course, been my career, premium audio and video. And I just wanted to know for myself what's different about the TVs and who is the best television. I wanted to know for myself so we can properly advise our clients based on their needs and environment. So we actually started with Greg Lowen, a
Yep.
calibrator, and we brought Greg in to help me evaluate the TVs very early on, back in 2004, and maybe for years after that. And we did it before and after calibration to determine all the elements of picture quality and how the TVs differed from each other. We didn't have a name for the event, and it wasn't a public event. It became public some years later, 2007, with Kevin Miller. And we had with us back then, we had, was previous to John Reformato, Dwayne Davis, known as D9. For 7 years in a row, they ran this with me. And let's see, who else was the third person on that? Sorry.
Mackenzie. Oh, Dave, yeah.
Oh, yeah, very, very well respected Dave McKenzie. And they helped me run it for 7 years. And we also had Ed Johnson, was also a fourth participant in helping me organize and host and produce the event. And they did it for 7 years with me. After that, it became a Joel Silver. We hired him. We got John Reformato. We've had Joe Kane, Tyler Pruitt. And for a number of these years, we've had your company involved. And Matt and Jeff came for many years in a row to help set up, organize, and run the back room of the event for probably a decade, if not longer.
This year was going to be my first year going up to help you guys out, and you know, things happen the way they happen, but I'll be with you guys going forward. Hopefully, I think that's going to be the plan. I'm really excited. And Robert, I love that story. You're a man of the people. I mean, I'm in this industry also because I'm an enthusiast and I love the stuff. That's excellent to hear. Now, John, you've been Robert's in-house calibrator for many years now, right?
I was just thinking about that because I knew that question was coming. The thing, Robert, we got to mention Dave Abrams worked with us.
Oh yeah, Dave's been there, sure. Yep.
Yeah. So so it's kind of interesting. I think I knew Robert since 2016. And, how I stumbled across him was I saw the video, you know, the shootout video on YouTube, scanning around, and then I lived really close to the store, and so we went over there, me and my wife, and introduced myself. I was still working for Verizon at the time.
Yeah.
And I finally retired, I think, in 2017. This is like my fourth retirement from Verizon. And I think Dave McKenzie was calibrating for Robert at the time, and his business got bigger and he needed to move on and stuff. So Robert just called me up one day and said, would you like to come to work for me, you know? And
yeah, why not?
stuff. Dave interviewed me, says you're good to go.
And here we are.
It's been that way ever since. So really, I guess late 2017 on.
Yes, that's good.
I was, working,
Now, John, you and I have talked over the years quite a bit. I think you and I actually may have electronically met on AVS forum or something when I started calibrating, and I had 10 million questions, and I think we had connected back then. So, with you been doing this as long as you've done it, and with all the shootouts and stuff, I would imagine even during setup and calibrating all the displays, it's hectic. There's a lot going on. What are some of the challenges that you run into during these events for both of you guys? What are some of the challenges?
Well, for me, the biggest problem is I'm a really organized person, and the event, lots of moving parts. And
Sure.
To get used to that. The hardest part, I think, of the whole event, besides all the logistics of setting everything up, and Robert, handles all that, and again, Matt Murray does a huge amount of work with some other people, is the calibration part. It's not specifically the calibration itself, but it's matching the white point on all the TVs.
Sure. Yep.
Right. Then, I see Joel Silver get up when he's if he's, one of the speakers, and if he looks at me and he picks up that little white,
his little puck,
that little white measurement device he's got, then I know I'm in big trouble, right? So get past that. When Joel says, nope, looks good, then I can relax, enjoy myself. But yeah, that's the hardest part because everybody sees differently.
Sure.
And in the 2018 and the 2019 shootouts, we started having, using Robert's wife, my wife, his daughter, and plus the guys that were there. So try and get some sort of average, some sort of middle.
Great, yeah.
Thought was white, because everybody sees differently, and that's like huge importance. Is if the white point is correct, it's going to throw the whole thing off, you know. So that's the real hard part. You know, the calibration is pretty standard because by the time we get the TV shootout, we've already played with we've already experimented with the sets. We know what's going on, and we have the latest firmware and whatever we need to do. So it's pretty much just going through the motions and using your experience to get the set up correctly.
Sure, sure. And Robert, what about you? What are some of the challenges that you run into when you're organizing the shootout and hosting it?
Well, selecting an honest and fair representation example of the TVs. So we go through a little quality control of each television to make sure we're putting in a fair sample of the television. John was saying the logistics, which he said I would bring up. It's a lot of work to set them all up, break down the store, have them all broken in and calibrated and quality controlled, and then packing them up and moving them to the convention center in New York City. We use the Jacob Javits Center frequently, and setting them all up there, getting them all on a perfect center line so that the center of each screen, regardless of the screen size or the bezel, is exactly the same across all TVs. So you're at eye level, you're looking at the center of each television.
Right.
And getting that properly set up and for the audience and the right angle of everything so that everybody's seeing the TVs on an equal playing field. So that, and then of course at the end, the breakdown and repacking.
Yeah.
So the logistics is a lot of work.
How long does the event typically last for? It's usually a couple of days, right?
It is a 2-day event, and it's probably 7 hours at least the first day and 4 or 5 hours on the second day. It takes a long time to go through all the elements and attributes of picture quality.
Sure.
With all the test patterns, and we find content that exploits the test pattern. So if we're showing where black detail on low luminance area, we can show it on a test pattern on a Pluge ramp scale, but it's really nice to show how it affects content. If we're showing a color decoding error, we want to find content that has that color in it so that we can show you how it looks against all the other TVs, not just on a test pattern. So, because a lot of people say, well, you can see it on a test pattern, but does it affect content?
What about, right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of time in selecting content that'll match each test pattern that we're demonstrating to show you how that does come up in content. Motion resolution. We'll show a hockey game with the puck flying.
So you mentioned before making sure all the TVs are eye level and things like that, which I love hearing that. That's always something that I'm always a big proponent of in the home, is making sure you're looking at the picture from the right angle and the right height, because as we know with certain technologies, viewing angles can change the picture, some more than others. So the fact that you guys are taking that much time to make sure they're eye level shows that, you know, you guys are taking this very seriously, and you're doing everything as close as you can to a standard. I actually have, there's a couple of pictures that you sent me, Robert, and I'd like to share those with the audience, just to give the audience sort of an idea of what the room looks like. And I also would assume too that you guys are, you know, blacking out the room and making sure there's no glares and really just really going all out with it, right?
The room is absent of light, and it's all draped in black theatrical fabric called duvetine that doesn't reflect light, it absorbs light. I want to give a very good shout out to Matt and Jeff Murray of AV Pro, because they do another very elegant attribute of this, and that is setting this up like a science lab. The late full bandwidth distribution system, you couldn't buy these things. They're state of the art, and it sets it up like a science lab. So every TV is on an equal playing field.
Right.
And another very vital element of this event.
Getting the distribution is imperative, because you have to make sure that all the TVs are getting the proper signal and the EDIDs are all set up correctly on the switch. And you know, that's the kind of stuff that integrators run into in distributed systems, and it's stuff that you guys will run into, especially dealing with multiple different manufacturers and different models and different capabilities and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, it takes everybody's serious efforts, but it couldn't be done without AV Pro, and I mean that with all the heart.
That's nice of you to say, Robert. Thank you for that. There's a couple of other, you guys had mentioned some of the events in the past, and I wanted to sort of bring up some of these older pictures so we can kind of talk about them. This looks like a really big group. This was from, you guys remember what year this was?
2018.
Okay, so that's a couple years old. And this is everybody, right? This is the people holding the event. I see you guys in the picture. This is also the judges too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's there.
They're so camera shy people, but that's most everybody.
So guys, how do you pick the judges of the event? Who's actually looking at the TVs and marking the scorecards, and how do those folks get picked?
John, do you want to discuss that, or you want me to?
I think you're better off.
Okay. It's mostly made up of Hollywood colorists, senior colorists, and Hollywood finishers, film finishers. But we also have some video scientists that participate, like the very famous Bill Schindler, who has multiple patents on video display technology. We have also a couple of TV reviewers that are television reviewers.
Yeah, I see Rob Sabin down here in this picture.
There he is.
10 judges every year. And then the audience votes. And the audience is made up of very serious enthusiasts as well. But the judging is, and the declaring who the winners are and the ranking of it comes from the 10 panelists, the 10 expert judges.
Do you guys want to touch on a little bit, like when the judges are looking at the picture, what are some of the things they're looking for? I know you guys have a long checklist, and they're giving each parameter on the checklist a score. So what are some of the things you guys are looking for in the picture to make these judgments and determinations?
At this part.
Yeah, I mean, so they're looking for color fidelity. I don't remember the exact form that we had, Robert, so maybe you're going to have to help me with this. But
I do know it, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I mean, looking, there's a score form, score sheet that we have, and Robert's developed, and they look for those picture quality attributes, you know. And Rob, why don't you go through the categories, because I wasn't prepared for this one. I don't remember anymore.
Sorry, guys, I just sprung that question on you. I was just thinking about.
Well, color fidelity, which is the accuracy of color.
Right.
Saturation, which includes color volume, but color saturation. Resolution is tested as well. Contrast ratio, I should have put that first because that's one of our important attributes. And we break it down into the actual contrast ratio, and separately we vote on black level, black detail. And we also look at off-angle viewing as well. That's also a less important attribute, but we do vote on that.
Sure.
And then we look at the up conversion of low-grade video, like cable content. Who does a better job in up converting? So those are the major attributes that we look at, and those are the elements that we review. And we have test patterns and content to show that off.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
I was going to just add one thing to that. So, and Robert's been refining this, right? You know, the weighting of each parameter each year. There's been constant evaluation of, you know, and weighting it differently. And I think this year what was interesting is that we were going to, and I guess we will if we have to shoot out, is do something that Vincent Teo did, which I thought was really interesting. A lot of people were asking about, was to mask the screen so that you couldn't tell, you know, which screen was LG or something.
Yes.
That's correct.
To do a blind test so that there was no, you know, subconscious or whatever, you know, favoritism to one brand. So we were already, you know, ready to do that as well, which I thought would be pretty interesting because, you know, one of the things I've seen so far with the 2020 sets is that the technology, the OLED technology at least, is sort of plateaued, right? You're not seeing any kind of major changes like you saw in the previous years. So now the sets look, I mean, in person, they look really, really close once they're calibrated. And so it's, you know, and sometimes we're splitting hairs, and right? So you really need this to do this blind testing,
right,
in order to make the results more valid. So really interested in and kind of excited to try that, like Vincent did. You know, it was a really, really excellent idea.
That's a really good idea. Now, you guys, Robert, you said the first shootout was, I'm sorry, you said like 07, is that what you said?
The first public one was 2007.
07. So This would be a really interesting question for you guys because '07 is when I started calibrating and really started really seeing what's going on with TVs kind of under the hood and whatnot. But looking at technologies from 2007, here we are 13 years later, judging things like black levels. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear what you guys say. How much better have the black levels gotten on TVs in the past 13 years?
Huge. In fact, when I look back at some of Robert's videos and I see, Dwayne Davis and McKenzie and all of these guys showing scans, I'm like, I put my glasses on to see if if I'm looking at it correctly.
Right.
Things have changed so much. And you needed like this magic in those days, even to get those really good results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody had to put their collective minds together and experience level just to get it to that, where today, if you look at it, today's standards, although the picture quality on the plasmas are really excellent, just looking at the scans, there's just been such tremendous advancements, in all
Mm-hmm.
of calibration and black levels and stuff. That I really don't know how I mean, brightness, right? I mean, the plasmas had an excellent, I never had a plasma, so I'm not really an expert to talk.
Oh, you didn't?
I had one, yeah. So I had a DLP at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, talking to lots of people who have had plasmas and are the experts on it, I could see that there was like huge differences. Even though it was a really, really, benchmark TV, right?
Sure.
So, and everything's working off of there. But today, I mean, as I said, we've looked at some of the 2020 LGs and the Sonys, and it's in a really good controlled room, everything calibrated fine. I mean, it's amazing the kind of picture quality that you get.
Yeah, I mentioned to you guys yesterday when we were talking yesterday about how the first time I ever had that kind of jaw-dropping experience was a DLP myself, watching Planet Earth back in like 2006 or so, and thinking that's the pinnacle of picture quality. It can't get better than this. And then eventually I saw a Pioneer plasma in a good room, nice and calibrated, and eventually I owned a plasma and got really used to that, and then owned an OLED. And then it just seems like every 5 years or so, it just seems like we're making these just massive leaps, and it just makes me wonder what we're going to be looking at in 2025 or 2030.
Well, the one thing is I'm sure we'll see 12-bit panels at some point, right?
Yes.
See brighter panels for sure.
Yeah.
But right now, as I said, there really hasn't been too much change. I mean, there's been some improvements in upscaling and some improvements in near black detail processing.
Right.
Colorimetry, calibration's gotten a little bit better. I mean, the big thing, a couple years ago was with LG, where you can recreate the LUTs, right? 3D LUTs.
Yes.
That was a huge advancement, right?
Major.
Maybe we see that with Sony at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be a breakthrough, right?
Sure.
But it's those kinds of things, but that really make a huge difference and enable you to really custom and really perfect the TV. I mean, to the point where sometimes, you look at it and we're talking about splitting hairs because you can't see things anymore. You can you can't possibly see them unless you're really, really looking for them.
Yeah. And I know like guys like you and I especially will really nerd out, and we get excited when we can make the delta errors under 1, and I'm like, my delta errors were 0.6, and it's like, you're exactly right. At that point, the errors are so low that you're splitting hairs. But the fact that we can measure them that low in the TVs, a normal consumer TV that anybody can buy, are putting up some of these numbers, it's unreal. I mean, Robert, you have a broadcast background. We expect this stuff out of broadcast monitors, and we always have and always will. But the fact that we're getting this accurate and this linear and this kind of color volume and stuff out of a consumer TV is mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah. May I add, because that brings up such an important part of this, and John and I have discussed this as well. I am working on recruiting a scientist on the human visual system who is going to be a professor from NYU, who's going to hopefully present the human visual system versus 2020 TV in color space, color volume, color gamut, contrast ratio at different luminance levels. How many stops, f-stops can the TV produce? How many can we see at different luminance ambient light levels, to see how close we've come to the human visual system?
Right.
Because I believe that we're actually just about there now. So we get nice incremental improvements every year. I'd say 2018 forward, they've been smaller incremental improvements. That was a big
Mhm.
change for us. But we get nice upgrades this year, as John said. Near black and processing has gotten another step ahead than 2019, so they've done a nice job in that. But
Mhm.
once we hit the visual system, the human visual system, that's going to be the end of what we'll need anyway
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
advancement, other than larger screen size, because that's
Mhm.
always one of the most important elements of enjoying the best experience immersively.
Yeah, another thing just to add to that, with the human visual system, we talk about this a lot of time in AVS, right?
Yeah.
Is alternate white points, right?
Yes.
Looking for this mysterious, magical alternate white point that's going to work for everybody, right? So everybody can use it. And while alternate white points do and can improve your picture quality, depending on what your preferences are, because everybody sees differently or slightly differently, right? And it's proven, right?
Sure.
They see better than men. They see more, you see different
Absolutely.
colors, for argument's sake, right? If you're young, you're old. I remember Joe Silva telling us a story at one of the ISF training seminars where he had his, what do they call that?
What his new lenses? He got new lenses.
new lenses
Yeah.
for his eye, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He did one, and then he came home because they only do one at a time, right? And he came
Right.
home and he's saying, "Wait a minute, I'm seeing yellow, the old one, new one's good, and
Yeah.
back to the doctor to get the other eye done, quickly." But the point of the matter is, because everybody sees differently,
Right.
everybody can have an individual preference on what alternate white point looks good to them.
Mhm.
I've looked at some that have been, touted being like really good, and to me, it looks a little on the green side, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, maybe you get used to that. I don't know. Maybe there's pros and cons, but the bottom line is, it's a really individual preference. I think we don't talk enough about this to really truly understand, right? And I think Robert bringing this guy in, would be a really, really interesting, talk.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
excellent addition. That's a really good idea to bring a color scientist in and a human visual scientist. And this is what we talk about in class, is like everything we do in calibration is based off biology and how our eyes work. So to bring somebody like that in should add a ton of value to it. That's excellent. Now, speaking of the alternate white point, I just happened to hit pause here on the video on the screen. This looks like Mr. Joe Kane himself back in 2014. So at this point, you guys are probably, I'd probably say half these TVs up here are probably plasmas, probably are half LCD.
Yes.
But as you look at this still shot where I paused it, you guys, hopefully you guys who are watching live here, you can actually see how every single display that we see in the picture here looks slightly different. We take a look at this one right here, and it's slightly more gray. This one's a little bit lighter, maybe slightly maybe a blue cast to it, perhaps. It's hard to tell what the camera may have been catching, but the whole point of it is to set all of these TVs to a level playing field. That way, all these judges can actually make a sound decision on which one looks better, right? That's the whole idea, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But the other thing too you got to remember is I wasn't there. This was way before my time, but my guess is that did they perceptually match the TVs? Do you remember?
No, we set everyone at D6500 back in those days.
Okay, that's why you said. Okay,
And we would match it to a Hollywood grading studio, like the BMV X300 was used for a number of years, and we would have that calibrated by somebody with magic eyes.
Yeah.
There he is. There he is. Magic eyes.
Just a slightly offset white point, and we would match that white point perceptually with Tyler and John and myself and
Sure.
my wife and daughter, and we would and the calibrators, and we would match that white point from the grading monitor, the Hollywood grading monitor, before we got started. That started around I don't know, maybe 2016 or so is when we started doing that. Prior, we used a Pro 101 FD Pioneer Kuru as
That's
our
your reference
monitor, and we used the BMX V 300 starting around 2016. Now this coming year, everything goes forward, we're going to use the 310, the new grading monitor.
The new one, the dual layer LCD, right?
Dual layer LCD.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Joel and I saw one of those at Abelscene up in New York,
Yes.
and we only got to spend a few minutes with it, but just in those few minutes, I mean, it was my first time laying eyes on it, and so far my only time laying eyes on it. But man, it was
Yeah.
kind of trippy how good the blacks were, knowing that it was an LCD. But that's the whole thing with dual layers. You know, one layer is just for black. So I mean, it seems like it's going to be super cool technology. The one I have up on the screen now, I think is probably the oldest video that you guys may have up on YouTube. And again, I'll send everybody listening in all these links so they can kind of check it out. But this one goes all the way back to 2011. And again, we have looks like a bunch of plasmas up here. If I recognize this correctly, maybe you guys can tell me. Some of these dark gray bezels look like some old Samsung plasmas, which they've stopped making those many years ago.
Yes. That's
They
correct.
were some of the original plasmas that when I first started calibrating, you know, we had these super expensive Pioneers and really nice Panasonics and stuff. But back in those days, like 2008, 9, 10, there were some Samsung plasmas back then that knocked my socks off. They made some excellent. And if I remember correctly, didn't they win some of the early shootouts?
2014, I think.
So yeah,
It was the 2014, 2015. I think it was the
F8500.
JS, the JS 9500 was one of them. I think that's 2015, I think, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the one before that was the HU 9000. I think that was probably 2014, right?
I do remember those, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to point out while I got you here is that, you know, the other thing you have to be careful of, and why you may be seeing this, is sometimes the camera, when you're taking pictures of stuff like this, will make it, you know, make the screens look like this. It may have, you know, no one's Wayne's there, I see, and I see Kevin Miller. My guess is that this is in real life the center perfectly. You know what I'm saying?
Probably, yeah.
I think the camera is probably distorting some of this. But, I mean, it is valid, you know.
I noticed that too. If I try to take a picture of a good image on a TV, it never, you know, it never comes out the way you want it to, of course, even with a really nice camera. And it's funny because, you know, we get people sometimes who will send me pictures of their TV and they'll say, hey, what's wrong with my TV? And I'm like, well, I can't really see. It's a picture of a picture, you know. It gets to be really tough when you do that kind of stuff. So guys, I've noticed something huge, and what sparked this idea was when Robert mentioned the Pioneer. The first Pioneer plasma that I ever dealt with, I wasn't calibrating yet. I was still on the sales floor before I even got into the field, period. I worked at a medium-sized chain store in Florida called Sound Advice at the time. And, you know, these Pioneer plasmas were coming in like 2000, 2001. These things were coming in at $30,000, $25,000 price tags. And the picture was excellent. You know, it was flat on the wall, and that was the big sexy thing at the time. But it's so funny to me to see a TV, even a 5-year-old TV that was $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 compared to a new TV that's $2,000 or $3,000. I mean, it's crazy how good they've gotten and how the prices have all dropped at the same time. It's awesome for the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah, the technology keeps getting better and the prices keep going lower.
Right.
It's quite a time to enjoy a new TV. And you know, you get so much more immersive experience, and people use that word a lot.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, when you watch an action adventure film and you have a new high-end OLED especially, but it could be one of these higher-end LCDs, and it's the right screen size to viewing ratio, you feel like you're in the movie. You get a much different experience than just watching it, you know, more casually. When we watch at home action adventure and romance movies, my wife leans over and holds hands with me. It makes you feel romantic.
You're part of it. That's the whole point. It's excellent.
You really get that in-movie experience.
Right.
And you know, I like to share my hobby with everybody. So I want everybody to have that entertainment in their home.
That's such a good point, because, you know, I've noticed this in my own systems and other people's systems, and even going to a commercial theater. If there's something wrong with the picture, or if there's something wrong with the sound, you're automatically distracted and you're completely out of the environment, you're completely out of the element. And then, you know, maybe it gets fixed. I was watching a movie. It was actually my first time in a Dolby theater. I was watching Black Panther. I was actually with Joel. We were in Arizona for a class, and the bottom left side of the screen was lit up green because of the green exit sign over here in the commercial theater. And those are the types of things that, Robert, I think what you're pointing to here is that takes you completely out of it. So, you know, we stress so hard a dark room, a quiet room, a calibrated picture, calibrated sound, because as you said, it's all about being part of it.
Yes.
I love that.
Thank you.
This was 2018.
Yeah, so this is John and Kevin Miller.
Yep.
And what I
2019.
think,
This was last.
oh, this is last year.
Let me think
Now,
a second. No, it wasn't last year. Yeah, it was last year. It was
so you guys, do
2019.
you guys come in like a day or two before the show, and it looks like you just go one by one and just calibrate each one of them? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Sort of.
It's a real process. I mean, you know what happens is when we have the shootouts earlier in the year, we're just getting the sets from the manufacturers,
Right.
and sometimes we get them like a couple of weeks ahead of time. And the problem always is that there's some bug or something not working properly.
Right.
And either talking to Tyler Pruitt or whoever, right? Or
Right.
some of the manufacturing people that we deal with, the engineers and stuff, trying to figure out, what we need to know so when we calibrate it, that we can do a good job on it so the TV has a good chance of winning, right? You know what I'm saying? We don't say this TV has a real bad bug in it and just calibrate and leave it, just let it go. We try to give everything, put everything on an equal level playing field and just
Sure.
So that's a lot of the stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to burn the TVs in, right? We have to break them
They
in.
need hours. Yep.
You remember last year, 2019, there was terrible tinting problem on the OLEDs, and we couldn't find good samples, right? When they go into Robert's inventory like crazy, the whole store was open with all these
Oh man.
TVs looking for one that was reasonable, right?
Sure.
And so we did the best we could. It's things like that, and then I remember. So then once you do all that prep work and you have a TV that doesn't have any dead pixels, is fairly good uniformity, and
Right.
whatever, out of retail stock, because obviously you don't want to put up a bad set, right? That has horrible banding, right?
Sure.
Something that's back, right? So it has to be open out of the box out of retail, acceptable, and now you break it in and calibrate it. So the calibration usually goes, so then you have these couple of days, because we always have somebody working with me, either it's Dave Abrams or Kevin Miller or somebody, right? Or
Sure.
time, and they can only allocate some amount of time. So they usually come in maybe 2 days ahead of time, and we'll look at the TVs and calibrate them, and then we have to evaluate them. And sometimes, even after we've spent all this time calibrating, we find something's not right. They have to start all over again, right? Especially if the light point's changed. So it's a really involved process, and it's stressful only because you have this hard deadline.
Sure.
You gotta hope that the TV doesn't break, especially if the thing I always try to do is I want to get everything working perfectly in the store that everybody's happy with, and it's a good representation, because I don't want to be down in the city or whatever, recalibrating everything in the last minute, that kind of stuff.
How do you guys determine which TVs are going to be in the shootout? Are you just kind of taking the flagship model from each major manufacturer? Is that sort of the thought process?
Well, I'll leave that to you. And also, talk about some of these off brands, because people were interested about that.
Thank you. Absolutely. So we do take the premium manufacturers' flagship televisions, and there's maybe been a year or so where the one step down TV may have made it, and not every year is it just limited to the premium manufacturers, because we look at and test other brands as well. Tier, might call, no disrespect, meant tier 2 brands. And I think 3 years we had Vizio TVs in the event. But it's not about embarrassing anybody and bringing in tier 2 products that don't stand up to the Sony processing and Samsung's picture quality and LG's picture quality. So we would rather leave them out. And there's been some products and premium brands that have been left out, and they're conspicuously missing.
Sure.
That's the way it has to be. It has to be a performance level, and it has to be a premium product, because I'm only interested in comparing to find the best TV. I'm not looking at the best value TV. This is about picture quality.
This is straight up performance.
Yeah. I wanted to add something whenever you're ready about some changes to 2020.
Sure. Yeah. Go for it.
Changes to that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's been a growth of 8K televisions, And we didn't do anything about it in 2019 other than show some of the 2019 televisions in the back of the TV shootout room. We had Sony's Master Series Z9G on display, and it was gorgeous. But we didn't include them because they're a different category. So this is the first time we're going to do this. But for 2020, we're going to have a 4K shootout. And then we're going to, when we finish, we're going to tally the results and crown the new king of 4K television for 2020. When the event is over, we're going to immediately start an 8K 2020 TV shootout.
Nice.
8K televisions.
Very good idea.
The same way. And then we're going to crown a king of 8K TV. At the end of that event, we're going to take the two kings and put them butt up against each other at the same center line. We're going to evaluate them. Stacey Spears is most likely to come out. If he doesn't come out to help us run the event, he will definitely be mastering and making some content from his native 8K red camera that he shoots with. In 8K, gorgeous video, 8K 10-bit test patterns as well.
Right.
And then he's going to dumb them down to 4K because it's better off starting with the higher resolution and moving them into the 4K resolution. And we're going to put 8K on one TV, 4K on the other. And then we're going to put 4K on both TVs. And we're going to compare them with the judges and the public to show what's the difference between a 4K TV, the best 4K TV, and the best 8K TV. It's not only about resolution.
Right, of course.
The manufacturers put the very best technology of video processing, of panel design in the 8K televisions. They don't put that technology even in the best flagship 4K TVs. So it's not just about the resolution enhancement, it's about contrast, it's about processing, it's backlight or OLED in this case. So there's a lot of different construction and engineering and design and implementation that's in the 8K TVs. So we want to show not the difference in resolution. We can do that with an eye chart. We want to show what's the difference in these televisions between 4K and 8K, the best of the best. And I am very anxious to see that as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys, I feel like we've kind of come full circle. When 4K TVs were new, 2012 or 13 or so, you know, we started hearing people say things like, oh, the resolution, it's so high, the panel's only so big, you're sitting far away, resolution doesn't really matter. And that kind of turned out to be, you know, not all the way true. And I feel like we're starting to hear those conversations again, all over again with 8K. So the fact that you guys are going to put two next to each other like that to really see what the differences are, people can probably sit closer, further away. I think that's going to be a really cool comparison. I can't wait to see the results of that one.
8K by itself has minimal value. It has some value, even unto itself, depending upon the screen size and the viewing distance. But as Joel Silver once said to me, think of trying to make a curve or a circle.
Yes.
And if you have a grid with lots of pixel space between them and larger pixels, it's kind of jagged.
Right.
You can make a beautiful circle when you have denser pixels closer together.
Yes.
There are attributes of 8K resolution that you can see from further back. And most importantly is the differences in the technologies that go into building those TVs.
We did a webinar with Florian Friedrich, who does a lot of 8K shooting. He's got a gorgeous NASA/ISS space video out there that's in 8K. It's available on his website. He lets you download it for free. But we were talking about how with more pixels, you have more of a chance with the AI upscaling stuff. You have a better chance with more pixels to recreate the image better. So Joel's example of making circles look more like circles, I mean, that's an excellent analogy. I love it.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing to that.
You know, go for it.
Sometimes, you know, when I'm in the store and Robert's got a couple of these 8K TVs that are playing, and I'll, you know, lunch break or something, I'm doing a large lot, and if I eat lunch, well, I'm letting it run. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at in the one case was the LG 8K. What size is it? 88 inches, Robert? What is that?
88 probably, yeah.
8K OLED,
yeah.
And it's unbelievable. Because those are the things that you've been talking about that go through my head is like, you know, why do we need 8K? But it's unbelievable. The job they did was fantastic. It's kind of amazing, you know, to see it in real life, you know.
Yeah, and as an example, other than that being a very special panel made by LG Display, the processor is different on that one. They have a special up converting processor built into that television that just does the up conversion. And John also spends a lot of time, I've noticed you doing this, on the 85-inch Sony Master Series
Yes.
E9G.
That thing's a beast.
At 85 inches from 5 feet away.
Yeah.
And that one produces almost 4,000 nits. So I remember presenting one time saying this one doesn't do tone mapping. It doesn't need it. It does the full dynamic range. And when you don't compress the HDR dynamic tonal range, and you don't compress the color volume, you see a different picture.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've kind of been saying this for a couple of years myself. Is, you know, as soon as the TVs are able to get, you know, as soon as the OLEDs are able to get to 1,000, and some of these other like LCD, like the Z9 can get to 4,000, we'll get to a point where we don't need tone mapping anymore. We don't have to worry about all the things that come with tone mapping, like having to decide whether to darken the whole image or to see the details on the bright parts. All those judgment calls that calibrators have to make on the fly in the field are going to go away. So you're exactly right. We'll see the full range video, all the details will be there, and it'll be as bright as it's supposed to be. And the other thing I like to point out to people too, when we talk about those high nit level TVs, don't think that the whole picture is that bright all the time. It's just for the flashes and the explosions and the fireworks and the car crashes and all the cool things that come with those special effects and stuff. So you guys, we have a really good handle on how you guys pick TVs and judges and all these things. The other thing that I'm curious about, you know, the panel is only going to show as good of a picture as what the source gives it. So I know you guys are judging upscaling. You're probably using a everyday cable box that you can find in anyone's home. What else are you using for sources? Are you streaming? Are you using discs? What's going on the source side of things?
John, do you want to?
So I think the last couple of shootouts we did a whole bunch of things, right? We had a whole bunch. We had a couple of Oppo, I guess 203s or whatever, players that we needed because the different content that we had. So we did that from we looked at regular Blu-ray plus 4K, and then also we streamed. We streamed from Netflix, and that was a little tricky because we were thinking about, should we use like an Apple TV or something and feed all the TVs, or should we use the internal apps?
Right.
I felt that we use the internal apps as more representative because this is what you're getting with the TV, right?
Sure.
So the app doesn't work so great or it works better. This way you get an idea of what you're buying, right? So it was kind of tricky to get it set up, but we did some streaming, 4K streaming, and we also did some Dolby Vision streaming and HDR streaming. We tried to cover everything we could. The only thing I don't think we did was any broadcast TV, right, Robert? Oh no, we did once in 2018 in the store. We hooked up Robert's dish, the dish.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think we played some sports.
We also have a Meridio pattern generator as well.
Good.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think last year's shootout was really a little bit more interesting to me than the others because of the fact that we had Stacy Spears' disc and brought the prototype of the 7G.
Yep.
So we were able to see,
that's right,
content from both those sources, right? Because the G also has content in it,
right?
That was different than what we were able to see with Blu-ray, for instance. That actually some of the sets had a challenge, reproducing that, which was interesting. It wasn't. Sometimes you could play content off of Blu-ray or whatever, everything's fine, it's good. When you put up some of these more challenging pieces of content from like Stacy's disc or the Meridio, all of a sudden, like it was like, wait a minute, what happened here, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I want to mention, was having trouble, and we could see it like tone mapping the sun out of existence, for argument's sake, or there was, we showed a star field and we were like, wait a minute, where's the stars?
Right.
So it was really interesting that way because it added an extra dimension, and we were going to do more of that this year, right? Especially if Stacy comes with, like what Robert said, he's going to bring custom-made content. Well, that kind of stuff would makes it really, really interesting beyond the normal scope of the event.
do you guys have the content that you're going to use for the judges kind of pre-picked? I know, I think last year you guys used Aquaman. So, you know, I'm just like you guys as an enthusiast in this world. I'm, you know, all of this to me, all of this stuff that we talk about and all these lengths that we go to make the picture right, at the end of the day, we're chasing the content, you know? So I am always on the lookout for content. Like I just picked this up in 4K.
Oh, yeah.
Unreal. I mean, it looks the reflections off the water at night and the opening scene of the girl. I mean, just unreal. So, what are you guys looking for when you're trying to pick out content for the shootouts? Are you looking for some stuff that might not be so good, so you can see how well the TV handles it, and you're looking at stuff that's really really good? How does that work? Oh, John, I think we lost you there for a second.
It's a big involved
There you
process, and it's not a single person that does this, right? It's like lots of people contribute. That's the other dimension to the shootout, because once we get all the TVs calibrated and the white points and everything's working, we usually sit down for like a half a day trying to figure out, you know, out of all the content that we want to show, what's best to show and how can we get it in the time frame and how could we,
Sure.
what do we really need to do? And of course, you know, you're gonna show popular titles, but also you want to show like stuff that has like really super near black content where we have to see, you know, how the TVs are handling it and which ones get challenged and which ones don't. There's a lot of different things that go into it, and you know, it's a collaborative effort, right, Robert? I mean, that's basically all we could say.
Yeah, yeah. Guys, we got maybe 5 more minutes left with Robert and John. So if you have any questions for them or for me or anything, you know, feel free. I've got the question box open. Feel free to send those questions in. So with everything that's going on this year, do you guys definitely have dates picked out yet or anything like that? Are you still kind of working on that?
No dates, but we're looking at the fall of this year.
Fall.
And we're playing it day by day based on the
course.
of COVID-19.
Of course. Now, I know last year, I couldn't make it last year. I had something conflicting on my schedule, but we ended up streaming it on YouTube live.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so
Those
that
things are vital. So all those YouTube celebrities
yeah,
are coming back, and we'll be streaming it live every year. We usually do stream it live.
right.
But in the last 2 years, we've been using Spare Change quite a bit. YouTube.
Yep.
Spare Change, and he's lifetime committed with no chance of parole thing.
That's good.
I just want to point out one thing with the streaming too, because Robert and I did something recently, like a little mini comparison of the A8H Sony to the LG CX in the theater in the back where Robert's sitting, and you know, one of the things that we found was that you know, you really have to pay attention. I mean, pay attention to how the exposure is being set on that camera that
Totally.
for instance, because in the beginning it wasn't right, you know, and we're concentrating on getting all the logistics going and talking about TVs. We don't realize the stream is like all messed up.
Right.
He saw that and fixed it. So going forward, we're going to pay a little more attention to that.
Sure.
So that all that's taken care of. I mean, it's really hard to make it exact, to stream it exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, you can get pretty close. You know, I'm not sure you can judge, you know, 100%, but you can get pretty close these days with the cameras these guys have. So that's one thing. And the other thing I wanted to point out before we leave is, you know, we're talking about stories and about exciting things with the shootout. And I just want to say one thing, because of course my mind, as Robert was talking about it, and you were talking about showing pictures. But one of the things I find so interesting is, like, you know, when you have people like Dave Abrams come, right, to help you, and Tyler Pruitt, right? So sitting there, and it's like, all right, we have Mr. Hollywood here, you know, and these big experts, and like, you know, I'm not going to touch the TVs, you know, just like,
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm like dragged into doing the calibration work with them and all this, and it's funny because just in doing all the calibration stuff, you're talking, right, and you know, Dave will say, well, you know, we should do this, and I'm like, wait a minute, how do you know that? You're like, you don't want, you know, like, where'd you find this information out? So the point is, you know, it's interesting because you're working with these guys. You get, you know, just over the course of a couple of days, you know, you learn a lot of stuff, you know.
Oh,
that, you know, and learn from each other, right? Sometimes Dave goes, wow, John, how'd you know that? You know, and
yeah.
the store, you know, but and vice versa. Same thing with Tyler, you know,
Sure.
with a lot of sharing of information, and it's you really and at the end of the day, when you leave that experience, you know, you're a better calibrator because
You're
now you
smarter.
stuff, right? You're smarter,
Yep.
right? Exactly. And you can't possibly get that information because we don't really have that kind of a collaborative environment to share those
Right.
kind of details, you know. So it's fun that way, right? And then
Yeah.
sometimes even I remember we had some issue last year in the city, and Matt says, "I know what that is," right? You know,
Yeah.
he had experience with that, so we picked up some, you know, learned from him as well. So it was really interesting.
Matt's a freak like that sometimes. Like I especially really deep dives into HDMI issues and things. I mean, he'll just I'll call him with a problem and he'll just bust something out and I'm like, how do you even you know, but he, you know, those guys at that level, they're dealing with engineers every day and scientists and stuff where, you know, I'm out in the field, you know, kind of finding stuff as it comes. But I mean, the picture you guys see on the screen right now, you get a group like this together and, you know, it's nothing but fun. I mean, you got Dave Abrams up here. If you guys don't know Dave, he calibrates most of the monitors in Hollywood. Matt Murray, he's our CTO here at AV Pro. This is Brent McCall from Metra, Tyler Pruitt from Portrait Displays, and of course Robert and John. So I mean, you get these types of guys in a room together, and you start throwing around ideas and stuff, and only positive can come of it. I love the camaraderie between our groups, and just really happy to be a part of it. And I really am excited to get up there with you guys and help out with the shootout, you know, going forward.
Yep, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, let's check the question box. What's that, John?
Yeah, a lot of interesting things have happened at Value Electronics. You'd be surprised.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, one question came in from Todd. And he says, any chance that we'll see entries from Vizio, Hisense, et cetera? And I think you kind of answered that question before, Robert.
We're looking at both of those brands, so stay tuned.
Yeah, great, awesome, guys.
It has to be close to the quality of processing and panels and so on.
Sure,
And
sure.
we see, respectfully to those two good brands, we see a lot of variation from panel to panel, where we see more consistency on the other.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of those. I think a lot of those companies are really trying to step it up. I mean, we've seen some really killer stuff from Vizio in the past two years or so. CES last year, I went to the Hisense booth and they had something that was like 4,000 nits, and I think some of these kind of up and coming, if you will, companies are really going to start going for the big guys here in the next couple of years. So, I mean, the more the merrier, in my opinion. The more competition, the better.
Those two brands are the ones that we're looking most seriously at.
Excellent, excellent. Good to know.
I wanted to say, because I think we are coming near the end.
Sure.
I can't believe how much enjoyable and how great it's been to be able to talk about this event, which is such a labor of serious love.
Yes.
And so much to put together. The costs alone are enormous.
Yes.
You know, it's not about adding marketing profit to our company, because if that was the answer, we would not be.
You wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Just because we love doing it and we love getting the manufacturers on target to produce a better TV.
Yes.
And consumers to understand the differences, because whoever comes in first may not be the first choice for you. You may be viewing in high ambient light. You may have a certain budget in mind. You could cross out the most expensive one that's on the list of attributes and just look at the other prices that are in your category. You might want to have video processing and motion resolution above all else. Just use the matrix chart that we have to pick the TV that matches your needs and application. So it's not about who won, it's who won that matches your application. So it's really a useful thing for the consumers to use to select a TV that matches their needs.
I love it. You know, you brought up a good point, and I totally agree. You know, if one manufacturer wins, the other manufacturers have to say, well, what can we do to win next year? And next thing you know, everybody's making nice TVs. So I love the contribution to the industry that the shootout brings. I mean, it's excellent. And I know Vincent's doing a shootout in the UK, and I think this is just good for everybody. And I really applaud you guys for doing it this long and continuing to do it. And continuing to love it. I mean, as I said before, I'm an enthusiast just like you guys, and I'm really happy to be part of it, and I can't wait to see you guys in person.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe someday we can do a shootout with Vincent. You never know, right?
Hey, you never know. It's just
he brings so much to the table, you know, and he's got a lot of experience, and that would bring a new dimension, you know, to this. He has
right.
he has to bring the Panasonic on the plane.
Oh, I know. I don't even want to talk about the Panasonic. Joel told me don't look at one. I said, okay, I'll try not to. But we had 2 of them in our ISF class in Amsterdam in February, and I made the mistake of looking at them. And you know, of course, I'm spoiled now. But it'll be interesting, guys, because it looks like the past several years, or past few years at least, it's been neck and neck between LG and Sony, and it just every year I'm really excited to see, you know, who squeaks out. So it should be cool.
It's really going to be interesting.
They're much more like each other than they are different. The differences are moderate.
And I kind of thought that was going to happen, and I'm happy to see it. You know, once the Sony and LG panel thing happened, you know, I'm talking to Bob Fucci, one of my mentors, and we're both agreeing that, you know, they're both going to get better. You know, the OLED panel is going to look really good on the Sony, but the Sony has the nice processing. Maybe LG will start to incorporate some of the Sony processing, and next thing you know, we have 2 excellent TVs to pick from.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, they really, and I can tell you this, you know, talking with LG, for instance, you know, and Robert talks more with Sony, but boy, they, you know, trust me, they're really working diligently. I mean, they're just not sitting on their laurels. They're working hard every year, trying to make it better and better. And it's really impressive, because a lot of people don't realize the amount of effort that's going on behind the scenes,
Right.
in that company specifically, and I'm sure with Sony as well. You know, but they're like all full out. You know, they listen to what's going on in AVS a lot. You know, they listen to their customers. And try to do the best they can, given the limits of the technology, to try and either improve or fix whatever, you know, maybe not 100%. You know, given the technology of OLED, there's a lot of things that just the technology is, and you've got to kind of do the best you can to use processing to get around it, right?
And the other mind-blowing thing is they put out a new model every year. So as soon as the new model comes out, they've probably already been working on the 2021 model. So I mean, these guys are continuously just grinding, trying to make nice TVs. So I applaud them for that. I mean, like I said, comparing a TV, a $10,000 TV 7 years ago to a $3,000 TV this year, I mean, it's just not even close.
And they've come down in price, right, Robert? It's cheaper this year, even, right?
What is that?
The OLEDs, right, or even cheaper.
Yeah, I did see some price drops.
Yeah, they came down nicely.
That's good. That's good. Well, guys, thank you so much. I didn't see any other questions coming in for the question box. If you guys do have any questions for Robert or John, feel free to email me and I'll get those questions filtered to them. It's just jason@avproglobal.com. Robert, if anybody who's listening in hasn't checked out Value Electronics before, what's the website?
It is valueelectronics.com.
Easy.
And is this going to be available to archive? Are you going to have this available for people?
Yes. If you guys did come in late to the webinar, no worries. We are recording it. We will post it up on YouTube and watch it at your leisure. So no worries there at all. So guys, thank you so much for attending. Thanks for listening in on the webinar. We're at our hour, we're actually a little bit over. I could talk to you guys all day about this stuff, but you know, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for everything that you've done for the industry. And I can't wait to see the next shootout. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Excellent, guys. We'll talk to you next time. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.